When you were young, you believed that the eyes of the world were fixed upon you. Every step, every mistake, every triumph, you imagined everyone was watching. But as you grow, you begin to see the truth. Most people are occupied with their own struggles. Their gaze is not on you. Their thoughts are on themselves. And this realization can feel lonely. It can feel as if your life does not matter to anyone else. But if you look deeper, you will find freedom hidden inside this truth. If nobody is truly watching, then you are free to move. If nobody is truly judging, then you are free to choose. If nobody truly cares, then the weight you place on their opinions can be set down. The world does not carry your destiny. You carry it yourself. So ask, what do I want? Not what do they expect of me? Not what will they think of me? Do what you want. Not out of defiance, not out of rebellion, but out of clarity. When the noise of imagined judgment falls silent, what remains is your own heart, and it already knows the way. So walk your path, make your choices, and understand the world is not concerned with your every step, but that does not make your steps meaningless. It makes them yours. When we hear the phrase, do what you want, it can sound rebellious, almost careless, as if life is meant to be lived without regard for anyone else. But when we add the second part, nobody cares anyway, it reveals something deeper and more subtle. It is not a call to disregard people, but a reminder of a hidden truth. Most of the time, people are not watching you as closely as you believe. The human mind is trained to exaggerate attention. From childhood, we are conditioned to believe that our behavior is constantly being observed and judged. At school, we are told to behave because the teacher is watching. At home, our parents correct us because neighbors or relatives might notice. Social environments reinforce the idea that every misstep will be remembered, every word analyzed. As a result, many grow up carrying a burden, the belief that every action is performed on a stage under the spotlight of other people's opinions. But when you step back, you begin to see that this spotlight is mostly imagined. People are preoccupied with themselves. They worry about their own failures, their own desires, their own insecurities. Even when they do notice something about you, their attention quickly shifts back to their own concerns. Their minds are filled with the same doubts and distractions you carry within yourself. In this way, the judgment you fear rarely holds the weight you assign to it. Understanding this indifference is not meant to make life feel empty. It is not meant to say that you are insignificant. Instead, it is meant to release you from the chains of exaggerated attention. Imagine walking through a crowded street. You may feel as though every stranger's eyes are fixed on you, measuring your clothes, your posture, your presence. But the truth is, those strangers are caught up in their own thoughts. One is thinking about unfinished work, another is worried about family, another is lost in memory. They might glance at you, but the moment passes and their attention drifts away. The world does not revolve around you, and hidden in that truth is freedom. This freedom is not noisy or dramatic. It is quiet, steady, and powerful. It means you can move more authentically without being paralyzed by the weight of imagined judgment. If you wish to take a new step in life, you are less bound by the question, what will they think? If you want to change direction, to pursue something unusual, to try and fail, you are less tied to the illusion that everyone will remember your mistakes. The freedom in indifference gives you permission to act. However, this freedom also brings responsibility. If nobody cares as much as you once believed, then nobody is going to live your life for you. Nobody is going to carry your burden. Nobody is going to walk your path. The indifference of others means that you are the one who must create meaning. You cannot rely on the gaze of the world to validate your existence. If you wait for universal approval, you may wait forever. The power of this understanding is not in becoming reckless, but in becoming deliberate. When you know that most eyes are turned inward, you stop wasting energy on unnecessary performances. You start asking what truly matters to you. You begin to align your actions not with imagined judgment, but with inner clarity. The weight of fear lessens, and the courage to live authentically grows. This is the essence of freedom in indifference, to realize that the world is too busy with its own struggles to bind you as tightly as you thought, to see that the imagined spotlight was never as bright as you believed, and to discover that within this overlooked space lies the opportunity to live more freely, more truthfully, more in accordance with what you really are. One of the most persistent struggles in the human mind is the feeling of being constantly observed. The belief that others are watching, judging, and evaluating every move becomes a silent companion in daily life. This is the illusion of attention. It is an illusion because it magnifies reality. While some degree of observation from others exists, the mind inflates it into something heavier, something suffocating. People begin to act not according to their own will, but according to the expectations they imagine are being placed upon them. This illusion begins early. A child who stumbles while walking is met with laughter or correction, and in that moment, the mind learns that mistakes are seen. Later in school, when a student answers incorrectly, the sound of classmates reacting reinforces the idea that others are always noticing. Even small social experiences like being excluded from a group or being teased for appearance, clothing, or speech become engraved in memory as proof that the world pays attention, that the world is always ready to judge. With time, these impressions grow stronger until they form a quiet yet powerful background noise that influences how one speaks, how one dresses, even how one thinks. But reality is different. Most people live in a state of self-concern. They are thinking about themselves, their future, their fears, and their own insecurities. If someone notices you, it is usually a fleeting glance, not a lifelong judgment. A small mistake you make in public may feel like a wound that everyone has seen, but for others, it is barely a passing moment, forgotten quickly. Yet the mind holds on, replaying it as if the entire world has etched it into memory. This is the distortion of perception, where attention feels larger than it actually is. The illusion of attention creates hesitation. People avoid risks because they fear how others might respond. They remain silent when they want to speak. They conform to norms even when those norms suffocate their spirit. It is not the judgment of others that binds them, but the fear of judgment, the imagined eyes that they believe are fixed upon them. This fear is heavy, but it is not real in the way it appears. It is a shadow projected by the mind. Breaking through this illusion requires clarity. Imagine standing on a stage, convinced that the entire audience is scrutinizing you. Your heart races, your palms sweat, your voice shakes. But if you step into the audience's perspective, you see something different. Many are distracted, thinking about their own lives. Some are tired, some are restless, some are waiting for the event to end. The level of attention you fear exists in your imagination far more than in reality. The same is true in daily life. People are wrapped in their own narratives, and they rarely devote the energy to judge yours with the depth you assume. Yet, the illusion is powerful because it connects with the desire for acceptance. Deep inside, humans want to belong, to be seen, to be valued. That longing makes us vulnerable to the belief that others are always watching. In truth, what most people notice is superficial, and even that fades quickly from memory. The depth of observation we imagine is a mirror of our own insecurities, not a reflection of reality. When this is understood, a new kind of strength emerges. not because the world has changed, but because perception has shifted. The eyes you thought were fixed on you were never truly there. The spotlight was created by your own mind, and when you step out of it, you begin to act more freely. You stop living as a performance and you begin living as a practice of authenticity. The illusion dissolves, and what remains is the recognition that your greatest critic, your harshest observer, has always been yourself. There is a quiet trap many people fall into: the endless waiting for the right moment, the right approval, or the right sign from others before they begin. This waiting often stretches into years, and sometimes it fills an entire lifetime. At the core of this delay is the subtle hope that someone will grant permission, that someone will validate the choice, that the world will nod in agreement. But life does not unfold in that way. What gives direction to your path is not the approval of others, but the actions you are willing to take. Liberation comes not from imagining freedom, not from desiring freedom, but from acting in alignment with it. The hesitation to act often grows from the belief that mistakes must be avoided at all costs. If you try and fail, it feels as if others will remember, as if your value will be reduced. This is why so many remain still, circling their desires in thought, speaking of them in private, but never stepping forward. Yet, paradoxically, it is only through action that fear is dissolved. Fear grows strongest in stillness, because in inaction the mind has space to imagine countless scenarios of failure. The moment you move, however, you break the cycle. Even if you stumble, the weight of hesitation lifts, because reality has replaced imagination. Acting authentically means allowing yourself to step forward without waiting for approval. It is not an act of defiance against the world, but an act of respect for your own life. Every dream you hold, every vision you see for yourself is waiting to be tested in reality. If you keep it only within, it remains fragile, vulnerable to doubt. But once you act, it takes form. It becomes real. Action transforms possibility into existence, and that transformation is liberating. It is also important to recognize that external validation, even when received, is fleeting. The applause of others is temporary, and it cannot carry you for long. If you act only for approval, then your steps are tied to a chain, constantly waiting for the next nod of recognition. But when you act from within, guided by clarity, then whether people praise you or ignore you, the movement itself is fulfilling. Liberation through action does not mean being careless. It means being free from dependence on approval as a condition for movement. Think of the countless ideas that never reach the world because of hesitation. Books never written, songs never sung, journeys never taken. Behind each of these unrealized possibilities is a person waiting, hoping that the world will first say, "It is safe, it is good, you will succeed." But that assurance rarely comes. Life does not give guarantees before you act. The guarantee is born only after action, only after you see that you are capable of moving despite uncertainty. Action also reveals truth. Many people imagine paths for themselves, but they cannot know whether those paths are right until they step onto them. Thinking, planning, and imagining can only go so far. You may spend years envisioning a choice, only to discover, once you finally act, that it was not what you truly wanted. Even then, the act of moving teaches more than endless thinking ever could. Every step, even a misstep, is a teacher. Every action brings clarity that stillness cannot provide. Liberation through action is not about force. It is about flow. It is about allowing yourself to begin even when conditions are not perfect, even when certainty is not present. Waiting for perfect clarity is another form of hesitation. You act and clarity follows. You step and the ground becomes firm. You choose, and through choosing you discover what matters. In this way, liberation is not something to be waited for, it is something to be practiced. It is found not in thought, not in permission, but in the living act of moving forward. When you realize that most people are not as invested in your life as you once believed, a subtle but profound truth begins to reveal itself. The responsibility for your life rests entirely on you. Nobody else is going to carry your meaning. Nobody else is going to shape your path with the same dedication that you must bring to it yourself. The freedom that comes from understanding indifference is paired with an equal weight of responsibility, because if others are not deeply concerned with your choices, then it is you alone who must decide what those choices will be. It is easy to fall into the comfort of believing that life is shaped by external forces. People often think that their happiness depends on the approval of others, their success on the opportunities handed to them, their peace on the kindness of the world. This perspective makes life seem as if it is happening to you, as though you are a passenger carried along by currents you cannot influence. But in truth, every day you are shaping the course of your life through decisions, both small and large. To embrace self-responsibility is to see yourself not as a passive participant, but as the one who must hold the reins. This realization can be daunting. If nobody else truly cares, then you cannot blame others for your lack of fulfillment. You cannot place your unfulfilled dreams at the feet of those who did not notice you or those who did not give you encouragement. The absence of external care means that the source of motivation must be internal. You must choose to act not because the world demands it, but because your inner being calls for it. The meaning of your life will not be delivered to you. It must be created through your actions, your commitments, your persistence. Taking responsibility also means accepting the consequences of your choices without escape. When you succeed, you understand that it was not because others carried you, but because you stepped forward with effort. When you fail, you see that blaming others only delays growth. Failure is part of the path, and it becomes valuable only when you take ownership of it. To deny responsibility is to deny the possibility of learning. But when you embrace responsibility fully, every failure sharpens you, every challenge strengthens you, and every success deepens your confidence. Many resist this level of responsibility because it removes excuses. If the world is indifferent, then you can no longer hide behind the belief that others are holding you back. The truth is that indifference liberates you, but it also exposes you. You cannot wait for society, for family, or for friends to map out your future. You must build it yourself. This is both a burden and a gift. It is a burden because you must carry it alone, but it is a gift because in carrying it you become unshakable. Self-responsibility also transforms how you see freedom. Freedom without responsibility is only recklessness. It is the illusion of movement without direction. But when you recognize that your life depends on the choices you make, freedom becomes sacred. Every moment becomes an opportunity to align yourself with your values, to move toward the vision you hold, to refine yourself through discipline. Responsibility turns freedom into purpose. To live this way is to stop seeking validation in the eyes of others. It is to recognize that nobody else will walk the path for you, and so you must walk it with intention. Others may walk beside you at times. They cannot carry your steps. Others may offer advice, but they cannot live with the consequences. It is your life, and it unfolds according to your decisions. When this truth is accepted, hesitation fades, blame dissolves, and the strength to move with clarity begins to grow. When you begin to see that most people are too absorbed in their own lives to constantly watch or judge yours, another realization slowly takes root. Your journey is uniquely yours, and in walking it, you will often walk alone. At first, this awareness can feel heavy, as if solitude is a form of abandonment. But with deeper reflection, solitude reveals itself not as emptiness, but as a ground for peace. The quiet that arises when you no longer depend on the attention of others is not a punishment. It is an invitation to discover the depth of your own presence. Human beings are naturally drawn toward connection. The desire to belong, to be seen, to be understood is deeply woven into our nature. For this reason, solitude can seem uncomfortable. To sit with yourself without distraction, without conversation, without the gaze of others can feel unsettling. The silence exposes the thoughts and emotions that constant interaction often hides. Yet it is precisely within this silence that you begin to see more clearly who you are beneath the noise of the world. Peace in solitude is not about isolation. It does not mean rejecting others or withdrawing permanently from life. Instead, it is about the ability to rest within yourself, to feel complete without needing the continuous validation of others. When you cultivate this state, you can walk among people without being swayed by every opinion, without being shaken by every judgment. Solitude builds an inner ground so steady that external conditions lose much of their power to disturb you. To experience peace in solitude requires practice. The modern world constantly pulls attention outward. Devices, conversations, obligations, and endless streams of information create a rhythm where silence is rare. But when you deliberately step away from this flow, when you sit in stillness, you begin to notice something profound. Beneath the surface of restless thought, there is a calm that does not depend on anything external. This calm does not need applause. It does not need recognition. It does not even need explanation. It simply exists, waiting for you to notice it. At first, the mind resists. Sitting in solitude, you may feel impatience or boredom. Thoughts may arise telling you that you are wasting time, that you should be doing something more productive. This restlessness is not a sign of failure. It is the mind revealing its addiction to noise. But if you stay with the quiet, a subtle shift happens. You start to see that the discomfort was only the surface, and beneath it lies a vast space where peace naturally grows. When peace in solitude becomes familiar, you no longer fear being alone. You see that solitude is not the absence of something, but the presence of clarity. It gives you room to reflect without interference, to listen to your own heart without the echo of other voices. This inner clarity allows you to move through the world with less confusion, because you are no longer pulled in every direction by external demands. You know how to return to your center, and that center becomes a source of strength. Peace in solitude also reshapes relationships. When you are at ease with yourself, you no longer seek others out of desperation or dependency. Instead, connection becomes an act of sharing rather than grasping. You relate to others not because you cannot bear to be alone, but because you genuinely wish to connect. This makes relationships more honest, more free, more balanced. Solitude gives you the foundation to engage with others without losing yourself in the process. The world may not always care about your journey, but this does not diminish its value. It is within the space of solitude that you come to recognize this truth. You learn that meaning does not come from the crowd, but from the depth of your own being. You discover that stillness is not emptiness, but the ground of peace. And from this ground, you can step into life with a calm strength that no external indifference can shake. Life is far less burdened by the gaze of others than we imagine. The belief that everyone is watching is an illusion, and within that illusion hides both fear and hesitation. When you begin to see clearly, you realize that most people are too entangled in their own stories to judge yours with the weight you once assumed. From this understanding arises freedom, the freedom to act without constant fear, the freedom to take responsibility for your path, and the freedom to find peace in solitude. To live authentically is not to seek approval, but to align with your own clarity. It is to walk your path knowing that others may glance, but their eyes soon return to themselves. Your life does not need their constant attention to hold value. The meaning you search for is not outside of you. It is not in the applause or judgment of others. It is within the choices you make, within the steps you take, and within the stillness you learn to embrace. When you carry this truth, the weight of imagined judgment falls away. What remains is a lighter way of being, a deeper sense of freedom, and the courage to live not as a performance, but as an expression of who you truly are.